Before we get into this 7-round mock draft, I feel that it's important to know what the Buccaneers have lost and gained during this offseason in order for us to understand what their positional needs are and who we should draft. So with that being said, let's get right into it. The Buccaneers have lost a ton of players on their roster throughout this offseason, including Tom Brady, of course, who might unretire, who knows what his plans are, Leonard Fournette, Blaine Gabbert, Giovanni Bernard, Cam Brate, their left tackle Donovan Smith, Josh Wells, a backup offensive lineman, Julio, Scotty Miller, who went to the Falcons, I believe, Akeem Hicks. He was often injured last season, so he didn't contribute too much. Raheem Nunez-Roches went to the Giants. Carl Nassib, still free agent. Chauncey Golston, another depth player, is also gone now. Logan Ryan is gone. Sean Murphy-Bunting signed a huge contract with the Tennessee Titans. Keanu Neal went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Edwards ended up signing with the Kansas City Chiefs because they're running a 3-safety system over there. And then Ryan Succop's gone as well. In terms of the free agency additions and re-signings the Buccaneers have made, they signed Baker Mayfield to compete with Kyle Trask in response to Tom Brady retiring. They signed Chase Edmonds, who signed a pretty significant deal with the Miami Dolphins but ended up getting traded to the Broncos. They also signed Matt Filer, who was the left guard for the Los Angeles Chargers, as he was a cap casualty for them. There's also Greg Gaines from the Rams, who's a really underrated D-tackle. Ryan Neal from the Seahawks. They also signed Chase McLaughlin to fill in for Ryan Succop. In terms of re-signings, they retained Aaron Stinney as a depth piece behind the O-line, Adrian Sinnett, Pat O'Connor, guys on the D-line. They also re-signed Levante David to a 1-year deal, and he's probably the longest tenured Buccaneer right now, and special teamer Anthony Nelson. As for their draft needs, the Buccaneers have more holes to fill than they have draft picks, but regardless, here are their positional needs. So first out, we got quarterback. Even though they signed Baker Mayfield, he's just a bridge quarterback and definitely not a long-term solution. So they definitely could look to add a rookie quarterback, whether that be a high first-round pick or some flyer later on in 3rd round or 4th round. They could also look to upgrade their O-line, given that they lost Donovan Smith at the left tackle position. And assuming Tristan Wirfs is going to move to left tackle, right tackle right now is manned by Brandon Walton, which is definitely something you don't want. In terms of the interior, Ryan Jensen is coming off a pretty significant ACL injury. Matt Filer is pretty solid. Luke Gedeke could start at one of the guard spots or even the tackle spot since he had experience playing that in college, but I think more depth is needed, even though they got like Robert Hainsey and re-signed Aaron Stinney. Wide receiver, at the top of the core, it looks really good with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage, but Russell Gage is on his last year of his contract. Mike Evans is getting up there in age, and behind them there's really no one else. So more depth is needed as well, because if one of them goes down, they're in huge trouble. Next up, we got cornerback. They re-signed Jamel Dean and as well as Carlton Davis, but behind them, they've only got their 5th-round pick from last year, Zion McCollum, who's a huge 6'4" corner, and really not much else. At safety, they're pretty thin there as well, with 3 guys on the roster currently: Antoine Winfield, Ryan Neal, and Nolan Turner. So looking to add a 3rd safety or even a 4th one would be ideal. At defensive end, they got Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who hasn't worked out as much as they hoped. Shaq Barrett's coming off a significant Achilles injury, and with his age being up there, could definitely look to upgrade at edge as well. Defensive and outside linebacker are kind of similar in terms of how the Bucs use them, so it's pretty interchangeable there. And then at kicker, you could pick someone as a late flyer and compete with Chase McLaughlin. Now that we've gone over their needs, let's dive into the mock draft. So the Buccaneers have 9 total picks in this entire draft. Our first pick is at 19 here. You could take Brian Branch here. He's a hybrid safety who can play in the slot and basically fill in the star role or money role, if you want to call it that, on your team, because I think the Bucs are currently lacking a inside corner and they also need safety, so he would fill in both of those spots. At cornerback, you've got Emmanuel Forbes, Cam Smith. I think the Bucs generally like bigger corners because Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jamel Dean, and even Zion McCollum are all like above 6 foot when they got drafted. So that's definitely a trend Jason Light and Mike Greenberg have in terms of the cornerback position. I think we might take Brian Branch here. He's just really versatile and fills in a ton of needs on the Buccaneers defense. We might also take linebacker depending on what the Devin White situation right now, but I highly doubt the Buccaneers are going to let him leave, even though he's been kind of up and down throughout his past 3 or 4 seasons. We got Drew Sanders here. Who else we have? Dayon Henley, another awesome linebacker. Nick Herbig, who wasn't necessarily a linebacker. He's like an outside linebacker edge type of guy. BJ Ojulari, he wore the hallowed number 18 for LSU, so that definitely shows a ton of leadership both on and off the field. He's a bit light to play in the NFL right now, so he's probably gonna have to spend some time in the weight room. You got DJ Turner, who ran the fastest 40, I believe, at the combine. It was like 4.26. We got Felix Anudike-Uzomah up here at 46. Joe Tippmann. Ooh, Julius Brents will be a really good corner candidate. He's a huge 6'3", 6'4" corner out of Kansas State. But yeah, with a ton of corners in this class, he's kind of getting overshadowed. At wide receiver, I think we can wait a bit. Cedric Tillman's there. A.T. Perry, Morphin Mims, a speed guy. As for edge, we got Derek Hall in the back, Foskey, Zach Harrison, who's kind of stiff and can't really bend, but still a really solid edge. I think we can go with Felix Anudike-Uzomah, or actually no, we went Brian Branch in the first round. Maybe go interior O-line. Cody Malk, Matt Bergeron. I think Matt Bergeron's pretty solid as a right tackle. We could get him at 82. I think that for now, we might just take BJ Ojulari and shore up the defense there, because Joe Tryon, even though he's a former first rounder, he hasn't worked out so far. So we can take Derek Hall. Well, Matt Bergeron's still here. Yeah, that could definitely be a move here. Is Julius Brent still here? Oh, he got picked. Unfortunate. Eli Ricks is also a huge corner. Corey Trice is as well. Honestly, he could play safety with how hard he hits. Gervin Dexter, an absolute run stuffer. Like on tape, he has a weird thing where he gets off like 1 second later than every other defensive person, which is kind of weird, but I don't think that's a huge issue. But anyways, I think we're going to take Matthew Bergeron here with a 3rd pick to shore up the right tackle spot or left tackle spot, depending on where they want to play Tristan Wirfs. But it's definitely an upgrade over Brandon Walton. We might take maybe an interior lineman just to have even more depth. But for now, we could focus on other groups. I'd say that corner is definitely an issue right now. Cameron Mitchell, he's a pretty decent sized corner, 6 foot. Jalen Jones, he's a bit smaller. Mekhi Garner, Alex Austin, Anthony Johnson. Yeah, corners starting to get thin here. Tight end could be a play, even though it's not a huge issue, because I feel that Cade Otton's pretty solid and he's a really friendly target if a quarterback needs him to be. Xavier Hutchinson here, Charlie Jones, Yaya Diaby. He's a bigger 6'3" edge out of Louisville. Chase Brown. I mean, finding a complimentary back could also be a good move here, with Keyshawn Vaughn in his last year, Rashawn White and Chase Edmonds being more of like 3rd down receiving backs. Not saying that they can't run in between the tackles, but having a bigger guy who can do that even better than they can would be the move. As I said, the Buccaneers have a ton of needs, so quarterback here could be a play as well. Might take Xavier Hutchinson. It's not a bad place to take him at. Dorian Williams looks good too, but I think he can fall to us at like 175 or 179. And there are other guys like Muhammad Diaby, who's had a ton of playing experience. Ivan Pace, he's more of a blitzer. Yasser Abdullah, he's a freak athlete. He's like an outside linebacker essentially, but he's really kind of small. He's like 6 foot, I believe. Anyway, he covered like a wide receiver 3 in motion who ran a wheel route, and then he basically picked him up and managed to pick off the quarterback, even though it was a positional mismatch, which is really impressive. I think we can take Xavier Hutchinson here, have like a guy sitting behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and learn from them. I think we might go corner here. Dorian Williams is gone. Ivan Pace might be a move too, because if Devin White leaves, Ivan Pace would fit into the role really well, even though he's a much smaller guy, because Devin White's primary role was basically to blitz and then let Levante David clean up. So yeah, that could definitely be a move. We can wait for Cam Mitchell. If we don't get him, we take like Starling Thomas or Anthony Johnson. I think that's a pretty solid move for now. Let's take Ivan Pace Jr. here. He can be our 3rd linebacker and learn from Levante and Devin. And if Devin leaves, Ivan Pace can replace him. With our 6th pick here at 179, we can go Cam Mitchell out of Northwestern, who's a decent sized corner, which is something the Bucs like. or we can take Dorian Thompson-Robinson. We've got a howitzer of an arm. His accuracy is definitely going to be an issue, but I think overall he has a ton of upside and can compete with Baker and Kyle Trask for the starting spot. And even if he doesn't manage to win, he can definitely sit behind them and learn. So yeah, I think that quarterback is probably more important than corner right now, so taking DTR at 179. Cameron Mitchell's still there. That's good. Brenton Strange, Charlie Jones. Charlie Jones is a really smooth route runner. He's not the most athletic guy out there, but yeah, he does have some Turner versatility as he plays some punt and kick returner. Pretty solid wide receiver. Andre Yosevas out of Princeton. I think one of the only Ivy League guys to come out this year. I think we might take Cam Mitchell here. He's been falling for like 2 or 3 rounds at this point, so let's go with that. So we got 2 more picks in this draft. Could take Jake Moody as a flyer, but I feel like we have even more important positions to fill out. Chris Rodriguez out of Kentucky could be an interesting one. Cameron Peoples as well. I feel like running back's pretty deep. We could just ignore it and sign someone, say like after the draft, and sign someone as an undrafted free agent and be fine, because Keenan Mitchell doesn't really fit. He's more of a straight line speed guy who thrives in outside zone schemes. Evan Hull could work, I guess, but he's a bit smaller, though he is insane between the tackles. I might take him in the last pick, who knows. Maybe we take another edge or safety, like a true safety, because if Brian Branch is, say, playing slot, you need like another 4th safety along with Brian Neal and Antoine Winfield. And if one of them goes down, a guy like Ronnie Hickman could fill in. Brendan Hill could as well. Jay Ward, he's played corner and safety, so that's definitely useful. I think that we might hold off for any D tackles for now, even though Jarrett Clark looks really good here, and this is Jay Silvera, a really good run stopper, does as well. Jalen Redmond, he was a 5-star prospect coming out of high school as an edge. Then he turned into a D tackle because he gained a ton of weight since he missed like the 2020 season due to COVID. He also has some blood clotting issues, which is also a reason why he sat out for that year. He's got a really low floor, but like an insane ceiling. Definitely a developmental guy. With Greg Gaines, Vita Vea, Logan Hall, and the re-signing of Patrick O'Connor and Deidre Sinnett, I think that the rotation is pretty solid there. So we could look to take Ronnie Hickman as our 3rd safety, assuming Brian Branch is our primary like slot corner guy. Let's go with Ronnie Hickman here. And then with our final pick, take a flyer on Evan Hull. Oh, Evan Hull's gone. Take John Gaines. You know how much I like him. He had the fastest 20-yard shuttle out of every single offensive lineman in this entire combine. I'm sure some of them didn't run, but there's a stat for interior linemen where those who have run like a short shuttle time below 4.47 tend to have been long-time starters within the NFL. So that list includes guys like Jason Kelsey, Zion Johnson, first-round pick for the Chargers, Zach Tom from the Packers. Pretty solid list of guys. And John Gaines also broke that threshold with a 4.45 short shuttle time. Jarrett Clark, as I mentioned, pretty solid dude. Jose Ramirez and B.J. Thompson are also 2 really solid edges. Jose Ramirez had like 12 sacks in college, which I'm pretty sure led the entire MAC. And then B.J. Thompson's a really athletic guy, but he's on the older side, even though he's a developmental guy, which is pretty interesting. But as our final pick, we go with D. Winters, who was a captain for TCU. Or go with a kicker. I guess Jake Moody went off the board. Noah Ruggles, the guy who shanked the kick against TCU for Ohio State. Really unfortunate, but as our final pick, we could take an interior lineman. Let's just take John Gaines here. Why not? He's a really solid interior lineman. Probably won't start immediately and just be a depth guy. But yeah, so going over our 9 picks here, we got Brian Branch in the first round. He was going to be our interior slot corner guy. He could play safety as well, as that's what he did in Alabama. Just kind of a do-it-all Swiss Army knife. We took B.J. Ojulari next, the edge out of LSU. He wore number 18. So definitely a really good leader in the locker room. He's definitely going to need to put on some more weight to survive in the NFL. But he's got the characteristics in terms of like long arms and bend, so he's pretty solid there. Matthew Bergeron out of Syracuse, really underrated tackle, can fill out the right tackle spot if Tristan Wirfs plays left. And next up we got Xavier Hutchinson out of Iowa State, a big body receiver who can sit behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and learn from them. We got Ivan Pace. He's a smaller 5'10", 5'11" guy who is an absolute demon, specializing in like blitzes from the linebacker spot. And then you got DTR, who can compete with Baker and Kyle Trask, and maybe even start in the future or this upcoming season. You got Cam Mitchell, cornerback out of Northwestern. He's got good size, which is what the Bucs like in their cornerbacks. So definitely going to be sitting behind Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis for now. You got Ronnie Hickman, safety out of Ohio State, to fill in like the third safety or fourth safety if Brian Branch plays safety as well. And then finally we got John Gaines out of UCLA to provide more depth on the offensive line. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and learned something about some of these prospects. And yeah, thanks for watching.